Two teams that have been utter disappointments so far this year, Texans and Titans. It's time for a Thursday crossover from the Locked On Podcast Network.
It's think.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Titans fans, Locked On Texans fans. Like John said, it stinks in here, but we got a football game coming up this weekend. We're going to dive into the biggest storylines for both teams. We got some crazy personnel moves from both teams this week as we talk about the matchups, and then we'll talk about what we think will decide this game in the end. Before we dive in, do want to let you know that Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans, Locked On Texans your first listen. I am the host of Locked On Titans, Tyler Rowland, here with the host of Locked On Texans, John Hickman. And John, right out of the gate, man, we're looking at two teams that are not in a good place. Both sit at 0-3. I think it's not as much of a surprise that the Titans are 0-3 as it is that the Texans are 0-3. But at the same time, the way that the Titans have gotten to 0-3 has been absolutely stinky as well and has made fans more mad than I think they expected to be through 3 weeks. My question is simple. What the heck is going on in Houston?
No, we're kissing cousins right now. Two bad, stinky teams. You know how they talk about going undefeated? Well, right now, both of our teams are just defeated. What's going on in Houston? No direction. There's no direction. We had not the squad show, but the AFC South show. And I talked about some of the improvements that I think the Houston Texans made and then some of the decisions that Nick Caserio, led by Nick Caserio, DeMeco Ryans, chose to do and make instead of maybe going in a different direction. And everything is backfired. You're looking at an offense that's extremely inept, cannot find the red zone, doesn't get to the red zone anyways. They're 0-4 in the red zone, so they're not able to punch it in. They're not successful on third downs, 8 of 33 on third down attempts offensively this year. And also through 3 games, Tyler, penalties, 24 penalties in 3 games.
The Titans know about that.
Game. So this is a team that, you know, the talk of being undisciplined, there's no reason why anybody should be able to defend DeMeco Ryans in that area. There's talk of a lackluster roster. There's no reason for anybody to be able to defend Nick Caserio in that area. And because of that, you look at people now wanting to maybe turn on CJ Stroud, who I think is judged too much on what he does under pressure. And that's extremely unfair to a young quarterback because it signals everything around you is so chaotic consistently, you're not able to have a normal day in the office. And so that's where the Houston Texans are right now. It's just a bad team who it doesn't feel like they're going to get better. It feels like it's going to continue to get worse.
No, I would relate it to like your body. Your liver's shutting down, your lungs aren't good, your stomach ain't working right, and you want your heart to just continue to beat on its own. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I'm someone who defended C.J. Stroud. He was my number 1 quarterback in that class. I think C.J. Stroud still has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but I didn't like what the Texans did in the offseason. And Texans fans could call it just, oh, it's a Titans guy hating, blah, 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 blah. But
I'm not going to let them do that.
I don't hate on anybody more than I hate on the Titans. I'm no homer that's just going to be like, oh, Titans good, everybody else sucks. Like anybody who's watched my content knows that ain't me. But I looked at the Texans all season and I said, I didn't like the hire of Nick Caley. I have a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that Caley was forced on DeMeco Ryans by 2 New England guys, and I didn't like the moves on the offensive line. Would you say that I've been right about that and those 2 things haven't lived up, or are there other things that maybe I'm not understanding?
Well, I'm going to say this, man. I think we give the offensive line a ton of flack. I think that from 2024 to 2025, they've played better. Now, what's different? You got a rookie out there, left tackle.
Yeah.
Had a rough day in the office against Josh Hines-Allen. And then through 3 games, they haven't had any real consistency. Andrews is in, then he gets hurt in week 2. In week 1, and Patterson's out there. Ed Ingram, who's the starter, doesn't go out there initially. because he's sick and he's out there for week 2. You got Howard moving around, but the offensive line has cleaned up on some things. Are they great? Absolutely not. Has teams figured out that if you send 5, they ain't gonna be able to block them? Yes, but they have been better. And some of those sacks, the 8 sacks, I think should be contributed more so to CJ Stroud. But everything else, you're absolutely right. Nick Caley has no clue what he wants to do. And I've talked about even, hey, maybe he needs to go up to the booth so he can collectively coach with all of the other coaches on the offensive staff. He needs a guy in his ear to say, hey, man, maybe we should do this. So I think he's in a world of confusion. And I think just overall, they invested more into the defense. Shout out to my man Stan Norfleet than the offense. And then you got a guy in Darrell Taylor who's a healthy scratch Sunday. He's only had 1 tackle on the year. That was an offseason signing. So it's bad all around. Like Nick Caserio did a terrible job of putting this roster together to help CJ Stroud. Now on the flip side, you guys have I want to consider a would-be promising quarterback. I think Ward is nice.
It's a mirror.
The wide receiver you guys drafted,
Io Manor,
he's been able to punch it in.
Yep.
Everything else for y'all just it stinks.
Struggle.
The ball can't protect the quarterback. Other teams able to run on y'all. Other teams able to get after the quarterback. What's going on in Tennessee that the Texans need to know about, man?
Well, man, I mean, this week has just been insane for the Titans. Brian Callahan gives up play calling. And I would tell you that a lot of the things that you're saying, you could just put the Titans in there. It feels like a mirror. The offensive line hasn't been good enough and struggles to deal with pressure. The offensive coordination has no direction, and the team doesn't have any kind of identity that it can lean back on. And a young quarterback who has a ton of talent and has shown promise is starting to kind of fall into some bad habits because they're crumbling under the weight of everything that's going on around them. So, like, the Texans were meant to be this great team that's won playoff games in back-to-back years. The Titans were expected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, but it just goes to show you no matter what the expectation is or where the team is at, if you don't support your quarterback properly, things are going to fall apart. So the big thing for the Titans is they just changed play calling from Brian Callahan over to Bo Hardigree, who's the quarterback coach.
That's big news.
In theory, the quarterback coach should have the best connection with the quarterback. He's worked with him every day, in the room, every day, every throw. He knows what he likes, what he doesn't like, what he does well, what he doesn't do well, what he responds to, what he doesn't. So the hope is that the new play caller can set the Titans up for better success with Cam Ward. And then Brian Callahan, who's been a disaster with in-game management. Should we go for it? Should we kick? Should we time out? Should we be aggressive, be conservative? What do we do here and there? He's been worse than a 12-year-old playing Madden. Like, my dad coached Pee Wee football for 20 years. My dad has no idea about the scheme that I break down each week or anything going on. But from a purely game management standpoint, my Pee Wee coach dad could make better in-game decisions than Brian Callahan, because at the end of the day, John, as you know, when you're a leader, you just have to make a call and do it. You just got to make a call and stand on business. And Brian Callahan has not done that. So will the changes that the Titans made actually mean improvements in the game? That's by far the biggest question going forward for the Titans. But we got to talk about some crazy moves that both of our teams made in the defensive secondary this week that caught everybody off guard before we dive into the big matchups to watch in this one. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Once again, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel, whether I'm doing player props, money lines, spreads, over-unders, or putting all that stuff together to build a same-game parlay. Doesn't matter. I can do it on FanDuel, and even if I miss kickoff, I can jump in and get in on some live betting action. It makes every game even more exciting, whether I'm just watching my favorite team or keeping an eye on my fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. Once again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. also want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Wayfair. When you think game day, you might not think of Wayfair, but you should, because Wayfair is the best kept secret for incredible and affordable game day finds. Wayfair has everything you need to get your space ready for the season, whether you're tailgating outdoors or cheering from your living room. As a matter of fact, a little peek behind the curtain for you guys, this desk that I sit at every single day and do my show, I got on Wayfair. It's an adjustable desk. I can stand up and do my film breakdowns, move around as I need to. Got it on wheels so I can rotate as I need to. I love my desk from Wayfair. Wayfair is your trusted destination for all things game day, from coolers to grills to recliners to slow cookers to desks. Shop, save, and score today at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. All right, John. It is time to continue today's show. I know. Tell me.
Really quick, shout out to Papa Roland, the coach. All right, that's number one. Can I hear those vocals one more time?
Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, I did choir for 12 years, all right?
All right, okay, all right.
You know, I'm out here cooking with Wayfair, but either way, the show must go on. Thank you for making Locked On Texans, Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. But the Texans made a crazy decision in the secondary, releasing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. The Titans make a crazy trade, trading starting cornerback Jarvis Brownlee Jr. From your perspective, man, with JG, or however he wants to say it, what happened there?
Just wasn't a fit. So I want to shout out my man, DJ Benamy on ESPN, friend of the show for the Locked On Texans podcast, who did a good job of pointing out, how bad some of the miscommunications on the back end of the defense was for Houston, which led to some big plays for Houston in critical moments. And then you also got to look at CJ Gardner-Johnson overall, 8 of 12 completions allowed in 2025 through 3 games. Through the first 2 games, I know the first game he allowed 4 catches, all 4 of the catches in the attempt. So 99 yards. He wanted to be blitzed more, had more opportunities on the sent on blitzes 5 times this year. He's also coming from an organization that just won it all, stepped into an organization that ain't won nothing. So I think that was the biggest thing, man. Winning cures issues, but when you're not winning, there's miscommunication. Also, there was reports of CJ Gardner-Johnson kind of pocket watching other players on the defensive side of the ball. Everything that just kind of, and I'm not confirming or denying, I'm just saying that's reports. All of that kind of piles up into, hey, you know what? This ain't working. Reports also said that, hey, man, he requested a trade. Through 3 games, you requested a trade, trying to get up out of here already. So that just speaks to where he is, where he views his career and future, maybe where he viewed the Houston Texans locker room, and maybe the amount of accountability going around that maybe needed to be going around, and if he was a fit in that in the first place. I think that for Houston, maybe rushed it, because what do you do for backups? That's a problem. And then I look at you guys trading on or moving on from, Brownlee. What's going on with that?
Man, I'll tell you real quick before I dive into that. Gardner-Johnson has a reputation for being a malcontent in the locker room and being difficult to deal with and rubbing people the wrong way. Right. And at the end of the day, if you're going to burn every bridge around you, you're going to wake up and you're going to be on an island all alone. And especially as he gets older into his career, his play is going to drop off and people just aren't going to deal with it. You're not worth the headache. Your play on the field is not worth the headache that you're giving us behind the scenes. So I didn't even see the reports, just on what I know about JG before, that seems like that could be the case.
And peep this, Philly just won the Super Bowl and they traded him away for almost nothing.
Immediately.
Kenyon Green ain't on nobody roster right now. I don't even think he's on a practice squad.
Right.
They took him on, given all of the bad film that he has out there. So winning cured it just enough for them to actually win it. But even Philly had to move on from him. And that's just the type of player he is around the league. And so, good luck to him wherever he goes. But, 2 teams that's 0-3, I'm looking at Tennessee and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if Houston will win this game, but there is an advantage there that may be open now that Brownlee is out of there.
100%. The Titans don't have a ton of depth at cornerback. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. has been a good cornerback. You drafted him in the 5th round. To get a guy who can start and give you production like that in the 5th round, that's a great pick. And that's the exact type of player that the Titans are saying that they want. They want to draft, they want to develop, and they want to retain. That's what they want their system to be. They don't want to have to go out and spend a bunch of money in free agency or make a bunch of high-level trades. They want to draft their guys. And Brownlee seemed like a guy who fit that mold. Now, I'll say this. He had penalty problems. He had a bunch of penalties, not just defensive pass interference penalties, but face mask penalties, horse collar penalties. Like, he is a bit of a feisty guy, and he got a lot of penalties, and that was a problem. But at the end of the day, penalties aren't a reason to trade a guy like that for a 6th round pick, for a 7th round pick to get a 6th back. Like, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And, more will probably come out soon. But I'll tell you the honest truth, John, my theory here is, with the penalties, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. said after the first game, I'm not changing my style. I don't care about the penalties. I'm going to keep playing the way that I play. And then the defensive coordinator in the couple of days after that said, no, we got to clean up the penalties. Like, we can't hurt the team. The penalties are unacceptable. I think it's possible that Brownlee Jr. did not take kindly to his coach calling him out like that and said, all right, well, actually, my ankle hurts. I don't want to play. How about that? I'm going to show up in a boot and say I can't play. And then the Titans were like, to heck with that. Now, I will admit, that's a tinfoil hat theory. I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together. But at the end of the day, John, trading a player like that who was a 5th round pick last year to get a 6th round pick back in a late round pick swap, it makes no sense at all. So you have to look beyond the surface level to try to theorize why this could happen. And there's only 2 things. Either he's a malcontent behind the scenes and they don't want him in the locker room, like what I'm talking about, or they see a long-term medical issue that they think will shorten his career. But if that's the case, wouldn't the Jets find that in the physical? Like, yeah. You really think you're going to just slide it past the Jets, that this dude is damaged goods, he's a lemon, and they're just going to take him from you? Like, that doesn't quite make sense, and that would be ethically wrong, in my opinion, for the Titans to try to trick a team like that with a injury problem. I don't think that's right. So I think you spin the bottle, the only thing that it can land on and make sense is this guy was a problem in the locker room, and no matter what it took or what they got back, they wanted him out of there, and they took what they could without releasing him. But it creates a monster hole for the Titans cornerback room where they have Snead, who's been up and down in his return, and Roger McCreary is a really good player, but he's a slot-only guy. He cannot play outside. And other than that, you have Darrell Baker Jr., who's a practice squad level cast-off from the Colts last year the Titans picked up. And they just got Jalen Armour-Davis from the Ravens off waivers, but he could only play 18 snaps, and they had to pull him off the field last week because he doesn't know what he's doing yet.
It's funny that Tennessee and Houston is always going to be connected somehow, some way, right? But in 2025, for this to be how they're connected, it's to me, it's hilarious. Because is it a clear sign, and I know for Houston it is, but is it a clear sign that these general managers are not getting it right? Is it like, because you guys actually just moved off of who I thought was a good general manager.
Yeah.
Didn't get a full chance to put his vision together. So I forget who stepped in, let me know, but how much of this do we have to kind of place blame on the general manager for our respective teams?
Well, that is the interesting conversation because Jarvis Brownlee Jr. was a Ran Carthon draft pick. And now Ran is gone, and they replaced him with Mike Borgonzi from Kansas City. And I would say Mike Borgonzi's draft has looked good so far. Like, the rookies have been the only bright spot for the Titans,
That's
realistically,
true.
outside of Peter Skoronski, the Titans who should be an all-pro guard this year. Like, outside of that, and Jeffrey Simmons' wrecking shop, there really isn't much to look at and be happy about. So I don't want to jump the gun and say Mike Borgonzi's made a mistake here. You got to kind of wait for the real reason to come out through the reporting in some way. And when trades happen, you can't really judge a trade right away. It's easy. It's like fantasy football. You see a trade, you're like, oh, that's a terrible trade. Why'd this idiot do that? And then the player that they traded away gets hurt, and it's like, oh, the idiot actually ended up winning that trade. So, you do kind of got to wait to see how trades work out, but it does not make sense on paper, and unless there's something nefarious or scandalous behind the scenes, it is a great trade for the Jets and a stupid trade for the Titans. So you do got to kind of wait to see how trades work out. But I think it's absolutely fair for you to be like, what's the general manager in Tennessee doing with this one?
Yeah, I mean, and on the flip side, that's how a lot of us here in Houston is feeling about this entire season. And I think nationally, you're starting to see, well, they're not doing much for CJ Stroud. Look at how this thing was put together. So that's a collective thought, I think, throughout the NFL football world. And that points directly back to general manager Nick Caserio, who has, in his own way, replicated the Patriot way. And for a Houston Texans franchise who has tried their hardest to be the Patriot South, you felt like they were getting away from that when they brought in D'Amico. But 3 years into this thing, it feels like that stench.
Yep.
They just can't get rid of it. They can try to wash it off. They can Bed Bath Beyond Body Works it off. But it's just not working. And they have ruined what should be a spectacular year 3 for their quarterback, CJ Stroud. So I put a lot of the onus on general manager Nick Caserio just for the terrible job that he did structuring his roster.
You know what? The Patriot way is crap. You know what the Patriot way is? It's Bill Belichick
Brady.
And Tom Brady. If you just want to say it's Tom Brady, that the Titans tried to do that Patriots way crap, and you know what it results in? An undisciplined team with a ton of penalties and an offense that can't score the football. That's what the Patriots way looks like for other teams trying to replicate the Patriot way, because you don't have the sauce, and that's Tom Brady. And Mike Vrabel tried to do the Patriot way thing, and all these Titans fans, now that Brian Callahan sucks, they're like, oh, I miss Mike Vrabel. But I continue to remind folks, Mike Vrabel was 6-18 in his final 24 games. He blew a 3-game lead in the division in 2023 to lose it. He had 27th or lower in scoring 3 out of his 6 seasons as the head coach. The Patriot way is not the real way, and I think the Titans and the Texans are learning that the hard way. But with that being said, let's talk about some matchups that we got to watch in this game and how we think this thing might ultimately play out. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between the queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. I love using the Game Time app. I bought NBA, NFL, WNBA, MLB, concert, comedy tickets, all on Game Time. I pulled up the Game Time app recently, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals, and I'm talking about your favorite NFL games for as low as $100. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, John, let's cap off today's crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Titans, Locked On Texans. We talked about what the heck is going on with these teams in the first 2 segments. At the end of the day, that's really the big question here, whether it's the play on the field, the moves they're making off the field. None of it makes sense at this point in time. But on the field, let's get back to on the field.
Let's do it.
The matchup that will decide this one, for me, it's the Texans' defensive line against the Titans' offensive line. The Titans' offensive line has been a massive disappointment so far this year. They've given up 15. Now, I will tell you, if I'm honest, John, you know I dive into the tape. I would say only maybe 8 of those sacks are actually on the offensive line. I would say 3 or 4 of them are probably Cam Ward. A couple other ones are running backs or tight ends blowing it in pass protection.
That's the Houston Texans.
Dude, it's a mirror. We're talking in a mirror like the Lil Wayne song. I'm looking at a mirror. You know what I mean? Like, that's where we're at right now. But at the end of the day, the Titans' offensive line, even if J.C. Latham is back, even if Kevin Zeitler is back, even if they're at full strength on the offensive line, the Texans' defensive line is nothing to play with. One of the best defensive fronts in the entire NFL. So even if the Titans' offensive line was playing well and was healthy, I would still look at this matchup as something that can wreck the game because Will Anderson might be, he's leading the NFL in pressure rate right now. He might be a top 3 edge rusher with Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, and Will Anderson at this point. And Danielle Hunter might be top 5, top 10. So that's the matchup I'm watching for. If the Titans get whooped up front by the Texans' defensive line, the Texans are going to run away with this game no matter what happens on the other side of the ball.
I think for Houston, if I'm looking at a matchup that will take them out and force them to lose a game, it's just what they've been showing us. They're going to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Again.
Them versus themselves.
11 penalties, 7 penalties, 6 penalties. The amount of those penalties, and that totals out to 24, that resulted in a third down conversion for the other team or second and long, third and long. And now that forces why they're in these long third down situations, which is why they can't convert on third down. Again, 8 of 33. That's what hurt Houston. It's always themselves through 3 games. And I think that when you have a team like Tennessee that it's really kind of they have nothing to lose, what's the real expectation there for Tennessee? I remember you mentioned maybe 5 or 6 wins.
5 wins was my prediction, and I think they're going to struggle to get there.
Yeah, so when you got a team like that, that's a little dangerous. Now, for Houston on the flip side, what I think is going to play in their favor, what should play in their favor, is since game 1, the rookie running back, Woody Marks, has gotten more opportunities. And he's a guy I really like. He's explosive. He can impact the team in the passing game just as much in the run game. Outside of his first game, the last couple of games, he's running that forward and some change per pop, right? When I look at what's been the weakness for the Tennessee Titans, along with Nick Chubb getting busy, they haven't been able to stop the run. And so I think for the Houston Texans, this is a team that I think needs to help their quarterback out a lot. He's been hit a lot, and they abandoned the run plenty of times throughout, especially in the second half. So just not turning the ball over, but turning around and handing the ball off to their running back, I think is going to play in a major way for Houston.
Well, that's also going to help them play clean football, and that's why I put that as kind of our third segment title here is I think the team that plays clean will win. You mentioned the penalties for the Texans. Texans fans, you want to hear something? John says, 11, 7, 6. Here's the Titans' penalties in the first 3 games. 13, 10, 8. Everybody's celebrating because the Titans only had 8 penalties in week 3, and they got beat by 21 points. You know what I mean? So the last 2 games for the Texans, it's been bad, but the Titans' best game is worse than that. So whichever team doesn't turn over the ball, doesn't shoot themselves in the foot with penalties, setting themselves up in third and long situations, that's the team that'll probably end up winning this one. But at the end of the day, I think the Texans can even afford a couple extra mistakes because they are a better team on paper than the Titans. And that defensive line, like Cam, I worry for Cam Ward's safety in this one. He's in danger.
I think, because you say that the Texans can afford a mistake, man, Tyler, they don't even get down to the red zone enough to go 0-4 in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like this offense is god awful. And that's why I think it's so bad. I'm not confident in picking Houston to beat the Tennessee Titans.
I understand that. I'm not confident to pick the Titans to beat anyone. So I know exactly how you feel.
This game is going to end 0-0.
No, but it's going to be -3 to -3 is what it really should be. You know what I mean?
This is going to be tough, and I don't even want to give a score prediction. I'm going to say, because of the frustration with this organization, man, I do think that this will be a game that can swing either way. I'm going to be realistic here, and I'm going to pick Houston, but it's something like 13-10.
I 100% agree with you. I would take the under on this game. I don't know what the FanDuel line is right now, the over-under, but I would take the under on this game. I think both teams are going to struggle. They're both going to look out of sorts, but I think ultimately, like I'm saying, that defensive front, the one good thing in this game is the Texans' defensive line. That's the only unit that you can look at for sure and be like, all right, we know that they're really good. So with that, I'm going to give the advantage to the Texans. I don't know what the score is going to be, but again, I think we're going under, and I would imagine the Texans are going to end up finding a way to win this one at home. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's Crossover Thursday. Locked On Texans, Locked On Titans. Thank you for making us your first listen. We're going to have a regular game preview for you guys on Friday. We're going to be here with you after the game to break down whatever happens, but it doesn't matter which fan base I'm talking to. You got to keep your head up, folks. Thank you for tuning in.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.